Well, here we are in Calderara Sottana, 650 meters altitude, and this property here in particular is about 6-7 hectares. So what is the typical characteristic of Calderara? Calderara is a very, very rocky soil. This is something that you can also see here. You can really see that there are very big stones on the surface, and so that is also a soil that is not very deep. And so here also under the surface there is a very, very heavy rock, and of course this is all volcanic origin, all Slavic origin, and that gives to the soil, of course, a lot of particular characteristics such as the minerality, that is very important, and the soils are very rich and very fertile for that reason. And so the soils here affect a lot the wines, and for that reason it is possible that we are able to make these wines from different single areas, each wine with its identity, because the grapes from here and the grapes from another area are totally different, even if they are the same varietal, which is Nerello Mascalese. So Calderara is about 60 to 100 years old, the old vineyard. Then in Calderara we have also a small plot which is a Prephylloxera vineyard. Okay, here we are in Santo Spirito. This vineyard is at an altitude of about 800 meters. So here we have a very, very sandy soil, a very deep soil and a very soft soil. So it is very rich of a lot of substances, very rich of nitrogen, and so here we have also a very, very rich vegetation. In general, here the vegetation is always very rich. So we do the green harvest. That means that we cut the leaves that are in excess, and then also the grapes that are in excess. Because we always want to have a very high quality grape, and so the plant must be must be controlled, that the grapes are always very concentrated. So Santo Spirito expresses a very elegant wine, a very fine wine, and that's because of these characteristics of altitude and of soil that gives these wines these identities. All the plantings in general are alberello on Etna. In fact, also in our vineyards the plantings are alberello. In fact, this is an alberello. It was one time a traditional alberello staying on its own stick like the traditional alberello method. So these vines are between 50 and 80 years old. So maybe it is supposed that inside Santo Spirito there can be also some Prephylloxera vines. That's possible because this is a very old vineyard. Okay, so here we are in Guardiola. Altitude is about 900 meters altitude. This is our highest vineyard of our property, and it is one of the highest vineyards in Europe. So this is the last vineyard that we harvest because, of course, the altitude affects a lot the vines. So the vines here need a lot of power to grow, and they need also more time because the soils, as higher you go, as poorer these soils are. And here we can see this, the soils are a mix of small stones and of volcanic ash. So this soil is very rich of volcanic ash. So this is our small plot of Prephylloxera vines. So these vines are about 120-140 years old. They survived the phylloxera attack. They are on their own roots, so they are not grafted. And it is just this small square here, so it's about 1 hectare, 1.5 hectare, and we produce just 2,500 bottles of this extraordinary wine, which is really a top wine, a unique wine that has really unique characteristics, and you feel the difference when you drink Prephylloxera wine and compare it then with a wine from a vineyard that was grafted with a Californian root. And we keep very, very carefully this vineyard because it is something rare and unique in the world, I think. And on Etna there aren't much of these vineyards, and we are one of the unique and first estates that made separate vinification of this wine. In the first time in 2007, Marco de Grazia decided to vinificate it separately and obtained this great wine.
In 1999 I came here, but in the meantime I stayed longer and was perfectly convinced of the Etna as an outstanding terroir to make wine in. But it didn't happen all at once. I was, very curious. Then I started studying the history of the place. The more I studied, the more I came back, the more I tasted just, peasants' wines. The more I was convinced, and finally in 2002 I bought my first vineyard. So with 2004, I had to say, well, at this point, either I build my own cellar, find a piece of property where I can do this, and make my own wines, or I have to sell what I bought. And unfortunately, I decided to build a cellar and got myself into deep trouble. And in fact, I never thought I'd make wines as fine as I'm making them today. And it was difficult. It was still difficult. It's very beautiful, and that's then, you know, more and more already. The first vintage I put the single vineyard of Calderara on it. Guardiola, actually, the first one. Then second vintage, Guardiola and Calderara, because it made perfect sense. Every lava flow in 800,000 years is different, so the soils are different, the altitudes are different. It made perfect sense that a grape this delicate and so fine, and the wines are so fine, they would be different. So then I bottled the different single vineyards because they are variable crus. Like still today, we vinify roughly 50 different parcels of vineyards separately, and we keep them separately in the barrels for a year before they get assembled into mostly our Etna Rossa. And so the cultural element is extremely important. The choice of what you want to do with wine, so therefore the choice of, being extremely careful in the vineyard is very important. And then not wanting to get into the way of the wine. At a certain point, letting it go. In other words, not letting your ego get into the way of the transformation of the grapes into the wine. A lot of winemakers want to make their imprint, want to make their, this is my wine, it's got to taste like me, 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 me. That's what I want to be transparent and visible. I want the vineyard to speak. And so everything has to be subdued and the wine has to speak. So the wood has to be subdued, everything has to be. I'm not saying you have to be a minimalist, nor am I saying you have to, the winemaking itself, because that would be totally wrong. You have to have an element of control. You want, the important things that you think need to happen. But then you have to, not interfere powerfully. Once you have great grapes coming in, then it's a question of sensitivity. If a winemaker cannot tell the difference between a good wine and a great wine, it's impossible, mathematically impossible that he can make a great wine. Because a great wine is not only the terroir, it's also the sensitivity of the élevage, of bringing it. That's probably that's the word you want. It's a Socratic way of making wine. In other words, Socrates always referred to himself as a midwife. That's what we do here. We are the midwives. We try to pull the baby out so it doesn't get any damage. But the baby has to be the baby. It's not me.